The biggest issue is that there's more spending than we have income, and that's a problem. So then the question is, where are you going to get the money from?
Fortunately or unfortunately, financial crises have more or less become a common occurrence in the world over the past few years. But Ray Dalio believes that we are only at the beginning of what could potentially be the worst crisis that the world has ever seen. Who is Ray Dalio? Ray Dalio is a billionaire investor and a hedge fund manager from the United States. He also co-founded and served as the co-chief investment officer of the world's largest hedge fund, Bridgewater Associates. Dalio is also a successful author and has published 6 books, all of them related to economics and investing. That being said, why listen to Ray Dalio? It's a fair question to ask. Well, the reason is that as an investor, Ray Dalio has been successful in predicting the 2008 financial crisis and also predicted the long-term financial tensions that would follow the COVID-19 pandemic in the United States. Well, he has been right on point on all fronts so far. And while that may be the case, Dalio himself has admitted that what he says are predictions, and there is a very good possibility that he is wrong too. He said that what he says aren't facts, and there have been multiple instances in the past where he is wrong as well. But then, looking at the number of times his predictions were actually correct, the odds are definitely stacked in his favour. Right now, the billionaire investor who helped grow Bridgewater Associates to the position it is in as the largest hedge fund in the world now sensed the onset of a new economic crisis and has warned the public to be prepared for what is to come. He said in an interview with CNBC, "I think we are at risk of war with China, largely due to misunderstandings." One peek into the current global scenario is enough to realise that the statement is true. Again, it is important to reiterate what Dalio himself has said. He has been wrong multiple times in the past as well. But that being said, Dalio justified his statements, saying that all economies at all periods of time follow a cyclical pattern. And precisely because of this, a future catastrophe is inevitable. Dalio's predictions come after analysing global historical patterns of more than the last 500 years. That is, to put it simply, if the cause of an economic crisis is not war with China, then it would be something else. But the thing of primary importance is that an economic collapse is imminent and inevitable. But why is it that Ray Dalio points particularly towards the state of affairs and the conflicts between the United States of America and China? Why is it that he is suggesting that trade relations between the two countries are only bound to get worse with time? The answer for this can be found in his latest book, Principles for Dealing with the Changing World Order. In the book, he said that the current attempts of the United States to convert China and its culture into something that is more conventionally American would eventually backfire, leading to a conflict between the two nations. The important thing to keep in mind is that both the nations, the US as well as China, are highly trade-oriented nations, and a conflict between the two nations will definitely lead to a trade war as well. In fact, there is a minor trade war going on between the countries in question right now that was started during the Donald Trump administration in 2018. The ongoing trade war has led to the rise of consumer prices, while the wages for the labourers were cut down. This led to a decline in profit margins of the companies in both of the countries. A Moody's Analytics study found that in just the first year of trade war, that is 2018 to 2019, the cost to the United States was a loss of a minimum of 300,000 jobs. Reiterating that this was just in the first year, a 2022 study by the Federal Reserve Bank of New York suggests that the trade war cost American companies a market capitalization of almost $1.7 trillion US. In his book, Dalio has compared China and her human rights policies to that of a strict parent. The statement received a lot of backlash as soon as it was released, stirring controversy. Ray Dalio clarified his comments on LinkedIn, where he wrote the following: "I was attempting to explain what a Chinese leader told me about how they think about governing. I was not expressing my own opinion or endorsing that approach." In the same post, Dalio wrote that he hoped that the United States and China would retreat from the brink of conflict and would find a way to work together in the future. He wrote in the post, "What I think and what Bridgewater does are of minuscule importance relative to the rapidly growing risk of US war with China. I hope that thoughtful attention will be paid to that issue and that mutual understandings will increase and inclinations to fight will diminish." Now, it is quite easy to just say that there is a crisis approaching. The real question is how to deal with it, how to overcome a crisis that is inevitable. Fortunately for us, Ray Dalio has an answer for that as well. He said that he has a simple principle when it comes to approaching future events. If you worry, you don't have to worry, and if you don't worry, you have to worry. Yes, the sentence seems complicated, but has a very simple explanation. If you worry right now, it means that you will be able to avoid worrying in the future. But, on the other hand, if you do not worry right now, in the present, you are bound to worry in the future. He rationalised this by saying that worrying makes one take a closer look at their own personal risks and so, by extension, taking action on them. What are the risks that Dalio talks about? Well, you can take the example of your location, which refers to the physical or geographical location where you live and work. Dalio has come up with a health index that roughly rates almost 12 nations on 18 varied factors like debt burdens, economic output, or their GDP and their perceived military strength. Dalio claims to have come up with this as a resource for the readers to assess risks and form strategies on their own as to where they could potentially invest. In an interview with Forbes, Dalio also said that he plans to launch a website which contains the real-time versions of the data provided in the book. Now, as easy as it is to say, moving out of your residence or your location is not a piece of cake, but it does provide a clear trade-off: surviving an economic crisis or leaving the comfort of one's home. Stating this, Dalio suggested that flexibility is key. Dalio also recommends the measuring of risks in real terms instead of nominal terms. By this, he means it is better to measure the risks with calculations that are adjusted to inflation than just measuring it at the present value of the currency. But why? Well, suppose you have a cash savings account. That account would be accruing interest at a different rate as compared to other investments, the reason being inflation. When Dalio says that he definitely does not mean that one has to choose other forms of investment over cash savings account or vice versa. As he said, amid chaotic times, you need your emergency savings to be funded by a safe, well-diversified portfolio. This brings us to the second way Ray Dalio suggests one could potentially overcome the impending economic crisis. Dalio suggests diversification of portfolios. Now, diversification of portfolios is an advice that most economists and financial analysts around the world will give, including economists like Jim Rogers, Jeremy Grantham, and even Ray Dalio. Dalio says that the very first step in having a portfolio is to assess the current investment strategy that one follows. This would help by figuring out the time period for which one could survive if they were to lose their job, according to Dalio. It always pays to find out whether the worst case scenario is and cover yourself from that. Step number 2 is to diversify or to ensure that all your money is distributed among various streams and not just concentrated in a single place. Dalio also says that cash is not a safe investment due to rising inflation. In fact, inflation has a 31-year high in the United States. Thus, having a diverse portfolio is always advisable. This diversification could range from investing in index funds to investing in physical assets like gold. Dalio also takes it a step further, suggesting the inclusion of digital assets like cryptocurrency in one's portfolio. He even openly stated that he owns a small amount of Bitcoin himself for the sole purpose of diversification. He also made it to a point to insist that it should never be an all-or-nothing deal when it comes to cryptocurrencies or physical assets or even cash. In the current economic scenario, a crash is inevitable, but one can protect themselves, reducing the impact of the crash. Words of investors like Ray Dalio might sound repetitive, but it sure works like magic. That brings us to the end of this video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more economic content. Until next time, bye!